This afternoon, the Notre Dame community and the ACE community has the joy and the privilege of welcoming to the University of Notre Dame a man whose life and work stand as a powerful witness to the capacity of education to transform lives, Juan Sepulveda. Growing up in a working-class Mexican-American neighborhood in Topeka, Kansas, Mr. Sepulveda benefited from 12 years of Catholic education, attending Our Lady of Guadalupe Elementary School and Hayden Catholic High School in Topeka. The first in his family to attend college, Juan went on to study at Harvard University, where upon graduation he was named a Rhodes Scholar, the third Latino ever to receive this honor. Believe it or not, and you'll understand my surprise when you see him stand up, he was a basketball star at Harvard. Find it quite remarkable, Juan. He earned a degree in politics, philosophy, and economics at Oxford University and subsequently received his law degree from Stanford University. Juan's been involved in service to the community since the age of 16, when he was the first high school student hired to work for the Kansas Secretary of State. In the state of Illinois, where I come from, that's not a particularly salutary recommendation, let me tell you. Mr. Sepulveda has been consistently recognized as one of the nation's most influential Hispanics. His experience over the last 20 years includes work as a senior executive, strategist, advocate, and philanthropist. He's served on numerous U.S. delegations, national, local boards, frankly, too numerous to mention. In 1995, Juan founded the Common Enterprise, an outgrowth of the Rockefeller Foundation national initiative to help build stronger communities across the United States by making nonprofits, philanthropic organizations, governments, businesses, communities more effective as they address critical social issues. Since 2009, Juan has served as director of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanic Americans. In this capacity, he works to engage students, parents, families, organizations, and communities to improve academic achievement and expand higher educational opportunities for Latinos. And he knows what he's doing. He has two beautiful children with his wife, Teresa, Michael and Victoria, who are also graduates of Catholic elementary and high school. For all of us at Notre Dame, Juan, your work inspires our own commitment to add 1 million Latino children to our Catholic schools over the coming decade. Juan knows the Notre Dame family well. He and Teresa, his wife, were married by one of our faculty members, a dear friend of mine and of ACE, and a beloved teacher at this university, Father Virgilio Elizondo. So my dear friends, please join me in providing a true Notre Dame welcome to a model of bold, imaginative, and tireless leadership for the common good, Juan Sepulveda.
I want to say thanks to Father for that introduction, and he was just mentioning right now that he thinks it's the only basketball star, I don't know about star, that has been taller than in his life to kind of... I want to say thanks for the invitation. I also want to say a special thanks to Father Joe. Father Joe waved to everybody. That's why I'm here. Father Joe made sure he extended an invitation, and so it's an honor to be here. And I need to say before we kind of jump into the speech that as a Mexican, and as a Catholic, this is my first time at Notre Dame. We all have interesting family members and our crazy aunts and uncles, and so for me, it's my Uncle Rudy. And so when I think about being here for the first time at Notre Dame, especially as a Mexican and a Catholic, I can remember that I was fortunate that when I was studying in England, I got a chance to do a little bit of traveling for the first time. And I remember going to Rome and going to the Vatican. and taking the pictures and being at Mass and just how incredible that experience was. And I remember talking to my family about it and showing the pictures, and everyone was so thrilled that I was there. And I remember my Uncle Rudy saying to me, "The Vatican, huh? That's not bad, but you haven't been to Notre Dame yet." So now I can tell my Uncle Rudy, so he's gonna be very happy. I just wanted to begin on behalf of President Obama and Arnie Duncan, our education secretary, just saying congratulations to all the graduates. If everyone would like to give them a huge round of applause. We are so proud of everything that you've achieved. Your families are so proud. The community is so proud of everything that you all have achieved and what it meant for you to get here today. And we know especially as you take on this important mission of going into the schools and playing that role as teachers and as leaders of our schools, something that is so critical for us as a country. And what I wanted to do first was just talk a little bit about the world that you're about to enter, and a little bit about kind of some of the experiences I've had in my own education and how I think it's going to be both some of the great stuff that you're going to be taking on and some of the challenges that we face moving forward as a country. The president has said for us that in order, his vision for us as a country, the way we are going to win the future is to out-educate, to out-build, and to out-innovate the rest of the world. We used to be number one in the world with the highest proportion of our population having a piece of paper beyond high school, a community college degree, an undergraduate degree, ongoing vocational and technical training, and graduate work. As recently as the year 2000, we've now dropped to 9th. We are now 18th in the world in terms of high school graduation rates. Of the 30 most developed countries, the OECD countries, we have dropped to 21st out of 30 in terms of science literacy. We've dropped to 25th out of 30 in terms of math literacy. So, Father mentioned, I've got 2 kids who are in college right now. My son Michael, who's a senior at DePaul, our daughter Victoria, who will be a junior at Harvard next year. I know that for them, and I think for all the kids that you will be working with, that this is a different world. That the 21st century is really about a global economy. And so my kids are no longer, we came from San Antonio to D.C., they are no longer going to be competing in terms of jobs with folks who are just from Dallas or Houston or L.A. or New York City. I know, they know, that they're going to be competing with kids who are from London, from Paris, from Mumbai, from Beijing, and from all other places around the planet. We truly have a global economy. And so the president knows that the only way we can get back to being who we are as a country is the only way we're going to win the future is to out-educate, to out-innovate, to out-build the rest of the world. We need you all, or you all are stepping up at a very critical time for us as a country to make sure that that education piece is there. And when I think about this particular program that's been created, that Father helped start, that Father Joe and so many other people are a part of, I got a chance to talk with some of the classes earlier this morning, but the special mission that you have is aligned exactly with what we see as our highest priority, the kids who need it the most. Because at the end of the day, we know the old distinction between public and private schools is the old way of thinking about things. That the most important thing we have to think about as a country is what are the best schools? What is the best education that we can offer to our kids, particularly those kids who haven't had access to that in the past? That's what you've stepped up. That's what you've been doing. That's what you're stepping up to do. We can't be more thrilled that you're stepping up at a time to take on one of the toughest assignments in the education system. My office is in charge of anything in the federal government that has to do with education as it impacts the Latino community. We just saw in the recent 2010 census, there are a lot of Mexicans. There are a lot of Latinos in this country, right? We're now at 54 million, 50.5 million who live on the mainland, and another almost 4 million who live on the island of Puerto Rico. And here's the thing, I don't need to tell folks in Notre Dame, but some folks have been a little, there's been a little misunderstanding on this. Here, I'll let you in on a secret. The folks who live on the island of Puerto Rico, they're American citizens. So 54 million total. About 6, some people are a little confused before talking about foreign relations with Puerto Rico. That's a whole other conversation. So we know 54 million. We know that Latinos are the largest group within the education system today. Pre-K through 12, our numbers are the largest. 1 of every 5 kids today, not in the future, not 20 years from now, but today, 1 of every 5 kids, 22% of the kids in the education system of pre-K through 12 are Latino kids. It's a different game. And so the president has said so many times that when he talks about how we're going to win the future, by out-educating, by out-building and out-innovating the rest of the world, we cannot get there without the Latino community. The future of the United States is inextricably linked to the future of the Latino community. The president's a really smart guy. He can count. Arnie Duncan is our education secretary. They can count. They know we can't get to being where we need to be without the Latino community really increasing our education attainment levels. The president has set a goal for us, a 2020 goal, to once again be number 1 in the world, with the highest proportion of our population having a piece of paper beyond high school. It is impossible numerically for us to get there without really changing the current situation for the Hispanic community. So for those of you who are going to be coming into our community and working side by side with us, we can't say thanks enough for once again taking on what's going to be one of the toughest assignments. What I wanted to do was to spend a little bit of time talking about what I think, through my own experiences, as we've talked to folks across the country, about the critical role that Catholic schools have played and are going to continue to play in the future, particularly in Hispanic communities. And I think back to my own time in schools, I mean, the whole thing, right? Juan Sepulveda, Topeka, Kansas, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So people will joke how they grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. So for us, it was literally the railroad. So my family comes from the northern part of Mexico, from Monterrey, and we literally came up through Texas, followed the railroad track and built it, stopped in Topeka when there was a place that used to be called the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe Railroad Shops. And so if you go to Topeka, Kansas today, the shops are still there, and literally across the street from the railroad shops is Our Lady of Guadalupe School, which is my school. You all probably studied in your courses. So in Topeka, Kansas, on the east side of Topeka is the railroad shops. On one side is the segregated Mexican-American community. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to Our Lady of Guadalupe School until I went to high school. I was in a 100% Mexican-American school in Topeka, Kansas. On the other side was the segregated African-American community, which you probably studied in a famous case known as Brown versus Board of Education. So that was my neighborhood. I always tell people that when I was a freshman in high school, I can remember my mom waking me up on the morning of December the 12th and telling me I had to go to school. And I was like, wait, today is the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. People don't go to school on the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was a different movement, even into our Catholic high school, about bringing our culture and with the rest of the community and what it meant to be there against people that we were playing basketball against and running against, now coming together as being part of one group. And so when I think about the positive pieces of what I've gone through and when I see what other folks have experienced in their Catholic school experiences, some things come to mind. So our school, Our Lady of Guadalupe in Topeka, Kansas, I think this year, it's actually next week. If any of you are going to be in Topeka next week, you can stop by for the Fiesta Mexicana. So it's a week-long event, a community event, where we always joke because that was the one time in the year that people felt safe coming to our neighborhood. And so they would all come to our side of town for a week and just eat all the Mexican food that they could. And we wanted them to eat as much as they could. Carnival rides, music acts. And all of that week was spent to raise money to keep the school operating for the next year. And so I think about my kids and what they went through, community service hours and all these things that are now part of kind of how we do work. No one told us there were community service hours and things. It was who we were as a community, right? It was how we operated, how we took care of each other. And it was a part of the church, but it was just who you were. It wasn't just about being Catholic or Mexican. It was about how we took care of each other, the relational nature of how we worked as a community. And everyone knew that we didn't have a lot of money, but that's when your family took vacation that week, and you went to work. And you went to work making the food and preparing it and serving it to folks so that we could keep our school open. So the strength of communities, when you think about Catholic schools, is something that's a huge plus that we can build upon, that unfortunately you don't see a lot of times in our schools. So how do we take advantage? So many times we see our parents and those family members as things that are getting in the way of what we need to get done. And I don't want them here at the school, and I don't want to welcome them. How do we switch that? How do we change that mentality to really look at the assets that they're bringing to the table, to build upon them, to welcome them, to do it in different languages, and to be able to say we're all a part of a family moving toward that same goal, a great education for our kids, great schools, and really preparing them. The president likes to say it all the time, that we think our best schools in this country should all be preparing our kids for three things: for college, a career, and for their life in the community. So those three C's become a really important piece, and I think we have the advantage for those of us who've been part of Catholic schools that we usually start with a really strong C on the community side. So how do we go from there? I think about another thing that I received in Catholic schools was just the notion of kind of hard work and discipline and the notion of values and really kind of making sure that I had that hard work ethic to kind of hang in there and get things done. And so that's a very positive piece of, once again, I think of what we can build upon. It's a part of our tradition. But I think it's important to remember that with all the light, there are also shadow sides. And I think as this is familia, this is family, right? So I can be honest about it, that there were challenges that I faced that we still see across the country in a number of our schools that we have to take on, face those things directly, and see what we need to do. So at the same time, when I was getting this great notion of working hard and being part of a team and the importance of values, if I'm really going to be honest, and I was very fortunate, I was the first one in my family to go to college, but when I showed up to Harvard, and I was very lucky to be there, but when I showed up to that place, I didn't know how to write. I didn't really know how to do calculus. I didn't know how to do some of the deep sciences. So while I got some great things there, there was also this challenge in a lot of our schools, particularly on the other side of town, where the standards weren't as high and that people weren't pushed to go to that next level. And a lot of times they didn't think we could do it. My school didn't have AP courses back then, right? There was nothing telling us on how to get ready to take the SAT test. So once again, making sure that we go beyond those kinds of things. Those of us who grew up there, in a very positive way, we were told not to speak Spanish, right? So my grandparents only spoke Spanish. My mom spoke both. But it was like, if you're going to make it in the United States, you're going to learn English. That's absolutely correct. But we didn't take advantage of the other language that we had as a starting point. And once again, in this global economy, here's a really, as the media is here, really controversial thing that the Obama administration said at Notre Dame today. We think speaking two languages is a good thing, right? And so that's a very different notion, right, that in the United States, most of us don't, right? Most of the world does do that. And so we know that once again, as a starting point for a lot of our kids, they start with an advantage. And they are going to learn English, there's no doubt about it. But that English and Spanish together puts them ahead in the game, gets them at a whole other level of what it means to be competing in this global economy in terms of the 21st century jobs. I always joke that I was lucky that I was doing okay in school, and so I couldn't take Spanish. Because you guys are too young for this, but there used to be these comedians, and then Cheech and Chong. And so they used to have this song, and then one of the lyrics of the songs was, Mexican Americans go to night school and take Spanish and get a B, right? And so, so we weren't encouraged. If you were taking Spanish, that meant you weren't a serious student. You were supposed to take other courses. And so we've got to shift in really how we think about some of these pieces. But at the same time, there's no doubt about it that what you all are about to do and what you've done already, we know that one of the secrets to success are the teachers and the leaders of our schools. And I'm sure everyone has their own set of stories. For me, it was Sister Mary Bridget Mullen, right, who was that teacher who changed my life, right? I was doing well in school, and I can remember there was an essay that I need to put together for this Century 3 Leaders Program. And Sister Mary Bridget, everyone else, Juan, what a great kid. He's a smart kid, top of the class, the whole bit. And I remember turning in like, yeah, I'm a smart guy. I'm at the top of the class. And I remember turning this in, and she said, no, I don't accept this. And I'll never forget, she told me, you know that you're capable of more. I don't have to tell you this. You know late at night that when you're by yourself that this wasn't the best that you could have done. So I'm not accepting it. Take it back and do it again. And I did it again, and then again, and then again. And I was so mad at her, but she was absolutely right. And she pushed me to a whole other level that I would have never gotten to without her taking that time on a one-on-one basis to say, I do not accept this because I know you can do more. And so she inspired me and got me to a whole other level. Those are the kind of teachers you're going to be. Those are the kind of leaders we need in our schools who really take that kind of really deep interest in us as people and making sure that we can get everything done. Now, on the flip side of that, the shadow side is around expectations. So sometimes we've got to deal with this notion that we don't think those kids can get it done, right? So I've never been to college. It's time. I graduated in high school in 1981. So it's time to go see the counselor to talk about what you're going to do next. And this, you guys, this is my kids always laugh about this. This was before there were computers in your house or in your pocket. And so so I didn't know anything about these programs, merge programs and things. And so I started to get these letters from all these colleges, and I would open them up, and it would be a letter from Harvard, a letter from some place called Yale, and I'd never heard of any of these places. But I would open these letters up, and I thought, oh, they don't really want me. And then I would open the letter, and the letter would say, Dear Juan. And I was like, wow, they put my name in there. They really want me to go to this place. And so we didn't know anything about school, and so it was time to go see the senior counselor. I won't mention his name, Mr. Rohr. And so I go in to see him, and he says, so Juan, you're a good kid, a great basketball player, you're doing well in track, and you're one of our top students. So where are you thinking of applying to? What are you going to do? Not where are you applying to school, but what are you thinking of doing? And I said, I'm going to go to college, and here are the schools I'm going to apply to. And I literally put these envelopes on his table. And I ended up I was going to apply to Harvard, Yale, and Brown for no other reason that they sent me the most stuff, right? So I literally just put them out there. And Mr. Rohr, who was a great guy, I mean, I love the guy, and he just said, hey, Juan, I just got to tell you something. You're not going to get any of those places. It's not going to happen. You're a good kid. It's not going to happen. And I don't know about this college thing, if it's really the right thing for you. You might want to think. And I was like, this is crazy. And so I went ahead and applied anyway, and got into all three of them, got into Harvard, Yale, and Brown, which is really nice. Harvard needed a basketball player, and so I ended up going so you can't make, right, this is what's great, that's also great about being Mexican and Catholic, you can't make this stuff up, right? Nobody would believe you if you actually wrote this as a story. So I go to Harvard, have a great time, was very fortunate, and then was very fortunate to win a Rhodes Scholarship, and so I was in England, and I was back home in Kansas for the holidays. And once again, my Uncle Rudy shows up again. And so my Uncle Rudy, there's a certain bottle of tequila he loves. And so it was Christmas time, so I was at the liquor store picking up a bottle of his favorite tequila to give him as a present. You can't make this stuff up. I come in the line, I put the bottle of tequila down, I'm not even thinking about it, put it down, and kind of look up, and it's like, hey, Mr. Rohr. And so he says to me, he says, Juan, we're so proud of you. I told you could do it, and we knew you would be able to. And the story's not done yet. And so then he says to me, I can't make this up, so what are you thinking of doing next? And I said, I'm applying to law school. He says, where are you applying to law school? I said, I'm thinking about Harvard, Yale, Stanford, and Berkeley. You know the punchline, right? So he says to me, I know you've been really successful, and I know you went to England or something, but you're not going to get in any of those schools. That'll be $29.99. And so we know that a lot of times we're just up against the low expectations that folks from that side of town, those kinds of kids, that they're not going to make it. And so we know that we've got to really make sure we take those things on. People have this myth that Latinos or Hispanic families don't want our kids to go to college, that we just want them to go to work and make some money, and that we know that that's a huge lie, and it's not just from experience or anecdotes. We know the research tells us that. The real thing is that we don't know how it works, right? So there are so few of us who've gone to college with those huge numbers I just told you about. When you look at the age of Hispanics who are old enough to have been in college and have finished college, This is a horrible number. Only 9% of us have actually graduated have an undergraduate degree. Only 9%, less than 10% of the Hispanic community of people who are old enough to go to college. And when you look at, I throw in community college degrees and it only gets us up to like 14%. And when we looked at the graduate numbers, I wasn't sure when we first looked at them, when we came in, I wasn't sure if it was a percentage or a number. So it's like 4%. So I wasn't sure, like, oh, I think Jose's got one. It's bad, right? It's really bad. But the thing is that because of that, we don't know how the system works, right? So we have to figure it out. My mom didn't know anything about it when I was applying. I didn't know anything about it. My family didn't know about it. So we've got to figure out how the system works. So here, right, another story. So another one of my uncles. So my Tío Ramon, my Uncle Ray. So classic Mexican Catholic family, right? So I graduate from Harvard. This is kind of a big deal. So what do is you come back home to the neighborhood and you have a huge pachanga, right? There's a big fiesta. There's a big party. And it's classic, right? You know, you see all these, you don't even know half these people are, right? But it's like, it's all your family. Everyone gets together and we just eat lots of meat. And so we're at the celebration. And my Uncle Raymond comes up to me and he says, because they always kind of thought at some point I would be a lawyer, right? I don't know, maybe I wasn't good at math or something. He'll be a lawyer. And so my Uncle Raymond says to me as we're celebrating, and he never could get it right because he keeps saying, oh, yeah, my nephew just graduated from Hartford. So so we're there, and he's there with a bunch of friends, and he kind of turns to me. He says, "So mijo, are you a lawyer now?" And I'm about to explain to him how you have to go to 3 years after graduates. But before I can say anything, he says, "Oh no, that's okay. You're not the smartest one in the family, but you hang in there. You hang, okay, Theo." And so, you know where this story's going. So I'd go to England. Come back, finish there. You know where this is going, right? Another party, right? Run into my uncle again. So, mijo, are you a lawyer now? I'm about to tell him again, and he starts telling his friends, see, this is my nephew here. He's not too smart. They had to send him to another country because he couldn't figure it out. But so, are you a lawyer? No, Theo, I'm not a lawyer yet. So eventually, by the time I got through, he was very happy. We don't know how the system works. So we know that a big part of it is that we need your help from the minute we are in pre-K, that you're telling us we're going to college, that you're helping us figure it out, that you're telling us what the courses are. All those pieces are critical as a teacher, as a part of the school, to create those expectations, but to give us the answers so that we don't have to figure it out on our own. We're going to have to figure out some stuff on our own, but help us get a sense of the path. And we know that when you do that our families, Father Joe and I were talking about this earlier, Luis Fraga, who's from Notre Dame, who had used to teach here and put out a survey, they talked about pushing almost 90%, 87% of, even though there's only 9% of us who've been to college, our mom saying, my kid is going to go and graduate from college. So we have even higher expectations of the American dream than anyone else, but we need your help to kind of make it happen. And so the final thing I wanted to say was we can't say no to our moms, right? And so my mom was classic Mexican Catholic mom, did everything she did, sacrificed so that we could go to school and do all the things. My dad died when I was really young, so she raised us as a single mom. And she never asked of anything of me and my brother. But a few years ago, I got this call, and I was up before I was in the administration, but I just happened to be in D.C. at a board meeting, and I got this call and they were saying, my wife was like, your mom really wants to talk to you. And I was like, okay. I thought she was just checking in, and it was classic. My mom never asked me for anything. So if she asked for something, a Mexican mom asks you for something, that's huge, right? And so I'm like, she was like, mijo, yeah, Mom, what's wrong? Well, I just needed to ask you for something. Sure, Mom, what is it that you need? Well, they had a meeting at the church. Okay, and well, what happened at the church? Well, they came and they've been looking at all the different schools, and well, I guess the Archbishop decided that things are really hard and the money's really tough, and so, well, they're gonna have to shut down the school. And I was like, shut down Our Lady? That's terrible. Mom, thanks for letting me know that. So, what do you need? Well, mijo, I hope you don't mind, but I was at the meeting and people were really mad and we didn't know what to do. And so I got up there and I said, oh, no, don't worry. I'll call my son. He'll save the school. Okay, Mom, yeah, let me see what I can do to save the school. And so I think about all the things I've gotten to do in my life, and I've been very blessed. But getting my brother, who's now a business guy, right? We were the first ones to go to college, but he was now a numbers guy. And so I called my brother and I said, did Mom talk to you? Yeah. Did she tell you? Yeah, we're supposed to save the school. Okay, so let's do this. And we got together over Christmas break. We came back. He ran the numbers. I ran the strategy. We did all this piece. We did the boom, got people organized. Bang, bang, bang. This is incredible. This is one of the proudest moments of my life. We saved the school, right? But we had to think about it in a really different way. We had to be creative. We had to be innovative. And so I really look at you all and what you've learned getting up to this point, and we hope that you take that moving forward. How do I be creative? How do I be innovative? How do I see what these families bring to the table as being a positive thing, and how do I build upon them? And how can I create schools that maybe haven't even existed before, because that's what it's going to take for our kids to be successful. One of my favorite quotes is a quote from Joseph Campbell that is a statement that was a bit of advice that was given to a young American Indian as he was about to go through at the time of his initiation. And the quote goes like this: "As you go the way of life, you will see a great chasm. Jump. It's not as wide as you think." So I see what you've decided to take on, the commitment you've made to get here today, and what you're about to do. Know that we are with you day in and day out, making sure that we can get the best schools for our kids. And when it gets tough, and when you see that chasm, which you may have hit already, all we can say is jump. It's not as wide as you think. Congratulations again to all of you, and thank you for letting me be a part of the ceremony.